young communists as an incubator for future communists is that of political education. Through political education, we empower young people not to accept the current society as it is, but to interrogate it on its inadequacies and inability to realize unalienated human development and potential, or even meet the basic needs of all our people. Through political education, we also empower young people not to be an extension of others, but to remain independent beings within organizations and society, and to deal with the phenomenon of members of members. Thank you. Young communists should be the most advanced of cadres within the party and the working class. They should lead by example and completely dedicate and immerse themselves into the life of the party to ensure that we realize socialism and beyond that, communism. We must fight for socialism. As our theme for the Congress indicates, we should use the current period of the YCL to intensify youth mobilization for socialism. As we state later in the report, socialism will not fall from the sky, ready built, because it is about the fundamental organic restructuring of the economy. Young communists should everywhere be prepared to wage a relentless fight against all forms of exploitation under capitalism. In many instances and in previous societies, the change in relations and forces of productions are not a picnic but comes via a revolution. Thus, the need for young communists to constantly wage a relentless fight against capitalism. We must constantly agitate the youth in favor of socialism through campaigns and a wide array of political and organizational work. Through the Jobs for Youth Coalition, we are constantly engaging young people and agitating them to revolt against the system. Through agitation, we also learn and educate each other, as this also is a form of practical work. Campaigns have become the lifeblood of the YCL work, as assimilated from the SACP as a form of organizing and agitation. The only way in which we can constantly grow our ranks will be through organizing. This is a critical task of young communists as we seek to grow from strength to strength. We've experienced uneven growth. Factionalism that sought to undermine the growth of the YCL has also plagued us recently. We have at times forgotten that we do not exist in order to hand out leadership position. We are not some company where people seek to be represented in the board of the YCL. We should move away from the culture of cutthroat politics and the fight for leadership positions, and that weakens the organization. At the end of the last Congress, were taken decisions to expel some comrades who disrupted the unity of the YCL by using foreign method to contest for leadership position. This must never be repeated in any gathering of the YCL, especially this one. We must anchor the YCL campaigns into the future by building on the success of the current campaigns. The draft program of action prepared by the National Committee will elaborate further in relation to this program. But in particular, the campaigns include that of jobs creation for youth or jobs for youth, connecting young people to employment opportunities, opening training and second chance opportunities for young people. In this respect also, it is necessary to scale up the National Youth Service to draw in large numbers of young people into community service, creating work exposure measures for those young people that do not have a degree or diplomas, and also improving the working condition and pay of youth across the economy. The YCL should not lose sight of some of the pressures that young people are confronted with, which are a result of their socio-economic conditions. This includes challenges such as HIV/AIDS, drugs and substance abuse, teenage pregnancy, and the loss of life through violent crimes. And we must condemn the learners who sometime in the week were circulating in some school, were circulating videos which went viral of them taking drugs, drinking alcohol, and engaging into activities which are not supposed to be happening in school premises. That we must condemn that, but as fellow young people, ours must not end with condemnation, but work within those communities. And we challenge the YCL branch from that school to go in there and work with the parents, work with the community, but also work with the learners to ensure that that which we saw this week does not ever be repeated again. Over the years, the YCL has been dependent on the guidance and leadership of the SACP for its continued existence. As we meet here today, many former leaders of the YCL have graduated into the ranks of the SACP in its various structures after being inducted in the YCL. We are proud of these comrades as they continue to exonerate the party's decision for having formed the YCL. And in the words of the General Secretary of the party, Comrade Nzimande, one of the most significant decisions that the party has taken since 1994 was the re-establishment of the YCL. The relationship of the YCL and the SACP takes an organizational, political, dialectical, and also a constitutional form. The YCL structures are an integral part of the SACP. They are an important component of party life and organizational activity. The YCL should at all times form part of SACP campaigns and programs and should be at the forefront of these campaigns. Through this, YCL cadres are organically and practically integrated into party life and begin at an early stage to be part of the party. There can never be a distinction and contradiction between the YCL program and that of the party. In some instances, there were attempts to drive a wedge between party and YCL structures in provinces, districts, and branches of structures. I'm reminded of the words of the late and former president of the ANC, Oliver Tambo, who warned, and I quote, "Beware of the wedge driver, the man who creeps from ear to ear, carrying a bag full of wedges, driving them in between you and the next comrade, between a group and another, a man or woman who goes around creating splits and divisions. Beware of the wedge driver, comrades. Watch his poisonous tongue," close quote. We've always ensured that we intervene urgently when such problems arise. We've always insisted that the party would be weakened if we have a weak YCL, and similarly, the YCL will be weakened and almost face oblivion if there is a weak SACP. Part of the scary trend that emerged from the last Congress of the YCL held in Mafikeng was when some YCL cadres wanted to use structures of the YCL so that they are able to contest the SACP by seizing leadership positions in the YCL. We remain convinced, comrades, that although naturally members of the YCL should graduate into party leadership, this should not in any way and form be seen as some hostile takeover of the party intending to ultimately deviate it from its program. We will continue to remain vigilant against such tendencies and expose them whenever and wherever they rear their ugly head. But equally, the political nature of the relationship between the YCL and the party is based on our assimilation of party programs, the South African Road to Socialism. The YCL contributed immensely in the development of the program and believes that its implementation lies at the heart of the realization of a socialist future. Part of joining the SACP includes acceding to the political leadership of the party and the understanding of its program and a commitment to its implementation. There have been those who sought to suggest that because of this political nature of the relationship, we have therefore become the lapdogs of the party, whilst others suggested that the National Secretary of the YCL is the stooge of the SACP General Secretary. The intention of this categorization is to suggest that for the YCL to be seen to be autonomous, it has to be confrontational in its relationship with the SACP. That for me not to be regarded as a stooge, I must be on the front page of each and every daily and weekly newspaper insulting the General Secretary of the Communist Party. And that the incoming leadership of the YCL must never fall in this trap. We are afforded all the opportunity within the party to engage with the determination of the party political program, to hurl insults, intimidate party leadership that will oust them, the kingmaker or queenmaker attitude, or to conduct ourselves as though we were a party within the party, would only invite temporary popularity through newspaper headlines while severely damaging, dividing, and weakening both the SACP and the YCL. To build a robust and militant youth formation does not have to be done on the basis of disrespect, ill-discipline, and utter rudeness. As young communists, we remain cognizant of the fact that our militancy and robustness should be directed to the enemies of socialism and communism and of the working class and the poor, and not against the party leadership. What happened to the ANC Youth League since 2008, where its then leaders saw themselves as the real representatives and leaders of the ANC, can never be the definition of the relationship between the SACP and the YCL. Some of you comrades would remember what was happening when the EFF took over the ANC Youth League in 2008. That was the definition of the relationship between the Youth League and the ANC. If we are called stooges and lapdogs, we are prepared to wear that mantle with pride, for we have come to understand that the YCL is not an independent political organization from the party, but an integral part of party structures with complete autonomy and complementary program of action. This relationship can never be defined by even the sworn enemies of the working class and the poor, whose intention are to drive a deep wedge amongst working class political organizations. I was asking one comrade in the week as to where have you seen an atheist, Comrade Soli, Mapaila and company, instructing Christians on how to live and how to behave. And I'm raising this because it has been the most anti-communist within our country and our society who have been saying what kind of communists are this, communists who do this, communists who do that, when they themselves are never prepared to be subjected to the leadership of the party and the discipline of communist practices, and also contributing towards the struggle for socialism. People who have developed this trend, made it their preoccupation. When they wake up, all they do is to blame the Communist Party. When they go and sleep, all they do is to blame the Communist Party, are never prepared to be subjected to the leadership of the Communist Party. Some of them, like the General Secretary of NUMSA, Ivan Jim and his clique, were members of the party in the PC in the Eastern Cape. But because they cannot be in an organization that says to them, this is the party program, that is why all that they do on a daily basis is to insult the Communist Party. Even when questions are being asked within NUMSA about their own leadership, all they can think about is Blade Nzimande is dividing NUMSA. That is why we have this problem. The SACP is dividing NUMSA. That is why we have the problem. If you want to throw stones at the Communist Party, you must be prepared to be its member and form part of its organization and its activity and be subjected to the discipline of its leadership.
That's live from the Young Communist League Congress underway.
But consequently, there should never be a YCL branch without an SACP branch. The role of an SACP branch in relation to the YCL is to induct YCL members into the party life and party organization, help them prepare and execute campaigns, and also ensure that they conduct themselves in line with party practices and programs. This defines the dialectical nature of the relationship between the party and the YCL. The relationship, as we said, is also constitutional in nature. The constitution of the SACP establishes the YCL with a clear program, that it is its preparatory school. The details of what the YCL should be are also contained in that constitution. So from Sunday or Monday, when we in the SACP decide that we don't want the YCL, all we will do is to amend our constitution as the SACP. So you must behave, comrades. When the ANC took a decision last week to turn the Youth League planned conference into a consultative one, there was and continues to be discontent about the intervention of the ANC in youth affairs and its Youth League. The progressive movement have always defined its Youth League structures not as separate structures, but as part of the broader structures and integral structures of the movement that from time to time should deserve attention, tutelage, and guidance. We should, however, comrades, be careful not to expect in the process youth formations that would be submissive, contained, and always a replica of the motherboard. In that case, we're saying in the National Committee that Singabi too serious. We've been too serious as the Young Communist League in the rebuilding of the YCL. There must be fun and excitement. Everyone must want to belong to the Young Communist League. And the excitement that we've seen this morning is what we must see. So KZN, there's a nice song, Ningazoba serious. So we must not be too serious, comrades. There must be a distinction between a YCL member and a party member. We should, in that case, we would not be where we are had Mandela and others not used their activism in the Youth League to present a concrete political program for accelerated transformation of both the ANC and society in 1994. If that was the case, the SACP would not, for instance, had a fresher and more ardent look into its relationship with state power and elections. Had that been the case, for instance, the National Liberation Movement would not have looked urgently at issues of economic freedom and the need for a radical economic transformation. We need vibrancy, militancy, and action, and anything short of that would be to put the youth movement and society in general into a long slumber. Since 1994, the ANC-led government has done much in transforming the lives of black South Africans and reversing the damage that was done by the ugly system of apartheid. There are significant gains that have been made in the provision of housing, electricity, water, roads, infrastructure, schools, healthcare facilities, 2 more universities, and many other forms of social infrastructure and programs that drastically transformed the quality of life of black people. This also included various acts of legislation passed by Parliament and implemented by government. Among other things that have changed, the labor market, among other things, these have changed the labor market and guaranteed protection for basic labor rights, forced companies to empower black businesses and extend ownership to historically excluded individuals, ensured that there is land restitution and redistribution, afforded women and children more social and physical protection from abuse, and guaranteed basic human rights through one of the most progressive constitutions the world has ever seen. Various sectors of the economy were encouraged to reach consensus on how they will transform the ownership and control of historically excluded individuals through various charter agreements, with the most significant ones being in mining and finance, as well as by government initiative, for instance, through the SACP campaign on land, the convening of the Land Summit that endorsed thorough land reform processes. Reminding ourselves of all of this does not mean that all has been smooth sailing, and that the transition from apartheid to democracy has not had some of its gains reversed, distorted, or resulted in unintended consequences. The sad reality is that even those who enter the middle class run the risk of falling back into poverty, given generations of exclusions and being victims of finance capital and remaining forever indebted, shows that no matter how many gets pulled out of the cycle of poverty, a lot more remain trapped. The fact that unemployment is still high, inequalities are deepening, much further from even the small target as set by the National Development Plan, and that there are rising poverty levels given the high increase of the number of people in the social security net, shows that our work is far from done. We still have to go the distance if we are to tamper with apartheid forms of social and economic relations and the institutions it had built to protect monopoly capital. We've always defined the objective of the struggle of our people as the liberation of blacks in general and Africans in particular from political and economic bondage, and the building of a non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic and prosperous South Africa. We understood that this is a continuous struggle that will not end with the defeat of the political representatives of the system of apartheid, but will also include a long and arduous but yet tougher struggle for economic emancipation of our people. Overall, the struggle has not only been about the occupation of the union building, the seat of government, and also the occupation of parliament, where democratically elected parties represent our people. Well, some represent themselves and their beret and their gumboots, but that besides the point. That is also included completely transforming the monopolistic character of our economy and ensuring that there is transformation in the ownership and control of the commanding heights of the economy. If the Johannesburg Stock Exchange remained controlled by white monopoly capitalists, the struggle continues. For communists in particular, this has entailed the strategic aim of advancing working class hegemony. The deepening triple crisis of unemployment, inequality, and poverty will not be completely resolved as long as the future ownership and control of the economy has not been transformed. South Africa's population is a youthful one. More than 20.1 million people are between the ages of 14 and 35. Many of these young people are in schools and universities, with the intake of young people following their education having passed the million mark. When we look at the unemployment figures, young people constitute more than 60% of the unemployed workforce, whilst a good 3.4 million of them are not in schools, skills center, or in employment. And according to South Africa Survey 2013, only 6% of South Africans have a university qualification. And we don't know how many of those are fake, unfortunately. Young black South Africans are the most affected by the legacy of apartheid, with the majority of them trapped in poverty, without better prospects of employment and alternative forms of income, and if employed, would be subjected to poverty wages that will lead to a qualitative transformation of their lives. The demographic of the prison population and the recently released statistics of the number of young male South Africans who die of unnatural causes is a stark reflection of the socio-economic realities that our youth are faced with. All political parties represented in parliament, without exception, target young people because of their vulnerabilities, both in terms of their composition and the issues that they raise. In fact, the last election was won on the basis of the attraction of the youth vote to each of the political parties. Young people are therefore a significant force, either for continued change of their conditions or its further perpetuation. We are not victims who should deserve pity, but a locomotive for the transformation of the South African society and economy. If you look at, for instance, the so-called service delivery protests, not only because of their energy and impatience, but because of tardy service delivery that affects young people, they have been at the center of this service delivery protest. The challenge for us is therefore to ensure that we realize the potential of this force and channel this frustration to ensure that it is at the center of transformation of the South African question. The critics of government often argue a narrative that suggests that the South African failure is significantly that of state failure, and that the private sector should move in and run the show, whether it be electricity at Eskom, or the challenges in the South African Airways, or the SABC, or in the police, or in any of the state-run institutions or parastatals. This narrative suggests that those who have been elected have failed in executing their responsibilities in leading South Africa, despite the fact that the ANC continues to enjoy majority support, and the president whose government has made the major impact on basic needs of our people has been the most vilified. If we look at, for instance, the issues that have been canvassed in the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, we find that the narrative is around culpability centers only on the state. Loanmen and private capitalists almost completely been exonerated. Their exploitation of workers and their terrible bad faith during negotiations have been airbrushed out of what has happened. Instead, all the focus is on the action of the police, and the whole commission is effectively prosecuting the state, especially its security apparatus. A commission that should have ideally been about why the conditions of workers in the mining sector have not changed in 50 years, while the South African mining sector continues to churn out dollar billionaires to the Forbes list and the rich list. A radical economic transformation and second transition would therefore, comrades, be amiss if they do not place at its center the youth question, and placing young people at the center of the ownership and control of the economy of South Africa. We're placing before this Congress a set of proposals on what needs to be done in order to engage with the so-called the youth question. What are the set of demands and priorities for the immediate consideration by the movement in general and the Alliance in particular to respond to the youth question? The National Committee believes that we should use the next term towards the 5th Congress as the need for a new deal for black working class and poor youth. This deal should encompass a set of priorities and a set of tasks that will campaign and lobby for as defining the strategic and tactical nature of the second transition and a radical economic transformation. If you have not been listening before, and if you won't listen after, but at least listen to this paragraph, which is essentially about what we think this Congress needs to resolve on. Essentially, we believe that the only way that the second transition can be regarded as truly radical is through the use of legislative, political, and mass power to transfer the ownership and control of key economic and productive sectors into the hands of the entire working class, with priority emphasis initially on the most oppressed majority of the working class, the black working class. The only way that the second transition can be regarded as truly radical is through the use of legislative, political, and mass power to transfer the ownership and control of key economic and productive sectors into the hands of the entire working class. Priority targets for transfer of ownership should be land, mining, finance, and energy, where our people have been excluded from in terms of ownership and control of the sectors. The approaches and sets of interventions that have been implemented before have been abetted and subverted by weaknesses in the capacity of the state to enforce them, or the co-option of a certain section of black capitalists who have essentially been turned into rent seekers and become compradorial. The use of the state to coerce capitalists to empower black people into their businesses have continuously and utterly failed, even with the various revisions of the Black Economic Empowerment Codes, whilst the economy has predominantly remained in the hands of white and monopoly capitalists. The reliance on sectoral determination of transformation through charters have also significantly failed, with many of the commitments made, for instance in the mining charter, are far from being attained. There is a need to also change the skewed dependence of the export of raw materials and shift towards beneficiation, instead of the highly import-oriented consumptive nature of the economy. However, we have to beneficiate what we own and what we control. As part of the resistance in terms of changing this structure have been the foreign and imperialist owners of the economy. The policy approach of building black industrialists, no matter how good-willing, will also fall into the same trap that black economic empowerment fell, where a certain clique of elite black business people were essentially co-opted and paraded as the success of transformation of the economy when the rest of our people have been excluded. The attack of business people as the contemporary enemy of our people has become fashionable, but in our view is a mere deviation from the real enemy of the progress of the National Democratic Revolution. The stance taken, for instance, by trade unions such as NUMSA, political parties such as the EFF, or of rubbishing black business people is to mistake the tree for the forest. And it's similar to the attack that has been leveled against the ANC-led government in the manner it has responded to the challenges of leading government. As has been witnessed With the economic partnership in the mining sector, black mine owners have been highly indebted to financial institutions who have financed their empowerment deals and therefore created a distortion in terms of ownership and control. And that is why some of them were screaming even more than those who are in the EFF, calling for the nationalization of their own mines because they wanted to get out of the debts that they've been trapped into after the deals have been made. They also have been reduced into shareholders and non-executive board members who earn dividends without real impact on transformational issues. This is not to make light of the fight against capital, no matter what its color is. But it is important for strategic and tactical purposes to properly identify our opponents and our allies. It is also important that we distinguish our approach from the rest of the neo-fascists who claim to be genuine representatives of the working class and the poor, whilst in truth they seek to strike a compromise with monopoly capital. The calls for nationalization of mine that has been led by the EFF and supported by NUMSA, for instance, and the so-called United Front is merely a farce intended to turn the state into a shareholder in the mining industry. We are not calling for the substitution of monopoly capitalism with state capitalism, a path that has been followed, for instance, by China. We are calling for the ownership and control of these sectors of the economy by the workers and the people as a whole, and that the role of the state should be elevated to providing quality and basic needs through the taxes and the people that the people will be paying to it. We fully agree with the SACP's position paper, particularly with the pillars of what economic transformation, radical economic transformation and program means. That of industrialization and beneficiation, transformation of the education sector, strengthening state capacity, and the mobilization of our people behind these programs. This approach by the SACP should be strengthened by our perspective and call for a new deal for black and working class youth. Attendant to this approach also are various tasks that should be pursued. These tasks, comrades, include the strengthening of the capacity of the state to coerce and ensure the implementation of the new laws that will lead to change in the ownership and control of the economy. There will be serious implications for the state and the people, including possible violent resistance and sabotage of the South African economy as was the case in Zimbabwe. The state and its institutions have to be ready to ensure that it responds to such resistance, but also support those who will be charged with the responsibility of running the economy. Already, even without any threat of to those who own the economy, there are forms of isolation and punitive measures to our economic sovereignty through the use of the so-called rating agencies such as Standard & Poor and Fitch. These forms of coercion would obviously intensify if we were to implement measures that tamper with those who own our economy. There are significant strides that have been made through access to political power that has advanced the implementation of the National Democratic Revolution. Progress has been made in dealing with racial and gender exploitation as component parts of the struggle for total emancipation. However, the complete break from the apartheid societal superstructure is mainly dependent on the resolution of the economic question. The reliance of the state and its institutions to ensure that black people in general and Africans in particular are liberated from political and economic bondage is an unsustainable tactic. Currently, for instance, many rely on the state of employment, business, and many rely on the state for employment, business, and the general protection of their rights. There is no other way, for instance, that we can explain why there are increasing levels of corruption in the public sector, as it has become a significant role player in the economy. In fact, the state is the largest employer in South Africa. Many people are dependent on the state sector for their empowerment and employment, and therefore would compete for government business. The state has become the engine of empowerment for black people at political, economic, and financial level. And that this is no accident because capital is on a strike. And the key question is, where is capital in the advancement of black people beyond creating the rent-seeking and donor-seeking on company bonds? We would like to restate our condemnation, for instance, of the state resources that happened in the name of security upgrades at the private residence of the president by companies that inflated prices and led to the ballooning of costs to more than 250 million rands. The YCL has consistently called for those who have been fingered by the Public Protector's report, the Interministerial Task Team report, and now the Special Investigation Unit to be brought to book and take responsibility for the repayment of the money that was looted. This is at the heart of the abuse of the tendering system and the greed associated with it. We remain opposed to the grandstanding and personalization of this issue by the political parties represented in Parliament, especially those who are currently accused of having looted dry the Limpopo cash cow. They saw the Limpopo government as a cash cow and they looted it dry. And today they want to be holier than thou and shout there in Parliament that the president should pay back the money. They themselves must first pay back the money that they looted in Limpopo that belongs to our people. One of the fundamental reasons why apartheid persisted was its use of coercive power of the state to underdevelop black communities through lack of education, miseducation, absence of basic health care, proper food security, and so forth. This was its greatest asset. To take away the dignity of black people and to deny them the right to participate in the economy and consequently to get them to believe through miseducation that they are children of a lesser God. Changing the economy is therefore at the heart of ensuring that we completely defeat apartheid and neo-colonialism. It is, however, unfortunate that there's a growing trend, Comrade General Secretary, of people who fraudulently claim to possess qualifications whilst they do not. Whilst it is important that we should not place primacy on the certification of individuals over other forms of education and skills development and the elitism that has become associated with being certificated, it is critical that we expose those who lie about their qualifications in order to have access to better jobs, even those that may not require the stated qualifications. There was a case in point of the SAA and now of the SABC where at the heart of the issue is the question of qualification. We believe that there must be a distinction made between the integrity of people who occupy such positions and how they've compromised the institutions that they lead through fraudulently claiming that they possess these qualifications. Society must act harshly against those who are found to have committed academic fraud. The YCL is deeply concerned about the continued impact that the load shedding of electricity, that the load shedding of electricity has due to the constrained capacity of Eskom that has long-term economic activity of the country. The expanded provision of electricity now to more than 7 million households without an expansion of electricity generation will cost us. It is important equally that Eskom should consistently inform our people on reliable schedules that they would implement load shedding so that they are better prepared. However, these are immediate interventions. The long-term intervention should speak to a sustainable program for electricity generation. We are in this crisis exactly because of initial disinvestment in state-owned companies and earlier calls for the privatization of Eskom and other parastatals. We need a YCL that will campaign radically in opposition to any attempts to privatize Eskom or electricity generation and that this will have long-term consequences on costs and also on access. We must build on the demands for access to clean electricity generation as part of the long-term strategy. There's growing confidence among right-wing racist supremacists and increase of neoliberal closet racists in our country. The confidence of challenging the state to maintain, for instance, exclusively Afrikaner privileges in the forms of academic and other forms of public institutions is nothing but separate development of HF Verwoerd in another name. Orania has nothing but the hallmarks of apartheid and HF Verwoerd. The use Groupings such as the Freedom Front Plus and AfriForum presents themselves as reformed fighters of Afrikaner rights who advocate exclusively for Afrikaner privileges and have over the last few years, gained significant confidence to even challenge the government, and not only the government, even poor puppets such as Chester Missing has been challenged in court for such privileges. Similarly, others are using costs to exclude black people and maintain exclusive white privileges. The manipulation of prices of houses in places such as Camps Bay here in Cape Town, the continued apartheid partial developments of towns and cities where private property developers determine the direction of development, exorbitant prices of academic fees, as is the case in schools such as Hilton College, where the school fees of one child in Hilton College is equal to running the high school that I went to in Mutimule, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, but for 3 years. The school fees of one child that goes to this Hilton College, in your backyard, Comrade Pillay and Comrade General Secretary in Maritzburg, Hilton College, where the children of the rich goes to. The school fees of one child is equal to the budget, a 3-year budget of the high school that I went to. This is extremely obscene, and as we say, intended to exclude. Use a cost to exclude people from education. And also, as is the case with, for instance, the University of Stellenbosch, costs of prices in shopping malls are all intended to protect white privilege and build white enclaves with sprinkling of acceptable middle-class black people. The same applies to access to fair administrative justice, as we have seen with various cases, including the Oscar Pistorius case, Sherin Divani, the former Fidentia boss J. Arthur Brown, and other such cases as Radovan Krejcika, which have exposed the fact that there is justice for the rich and injustice for the rest of us. The poorer you are, the more injustice you will receive. The polarization of society on the basis of the historical privileges of predominantly one racial group speaks to the class issues that confronts our country to this day. As we pointed out at the National Council last year, those who say to us that raising these issues is equal to taking South Africa backwards, and that young people do not see themselves in shades of color, are oblivious to the different economic realities that are confronting us. We should unite our people, young people in particular, black, Indian, colored or white. But this unity cannot be built on the foundation of continued black poverty and white wealth. We have similarly challenged the ideas of the so-called born frees and declared that apartheid never died in 1994 and that it is continuing and that it is visible. We want to repeat the point we made at the National Council, that those who ask of us to forget the psychological and social scars inflicted on us by apartheid that we inherited from our parents and our parents' parents should be prepared to forego the huge inheritance from their parents who gained them through the same apartheid system. If you tell me to forget about apartheid, then please listen to me when I say to you, forego the inheritances from your parents that they ill got in the apartheid system. And that until that happens, we will never ever forget that there is apartheid, because it is living with us. The apartheid differences are there, they are a reality. To sum up what we present in the strategic and tactical perspective of the YCL document on what we mean by a new deal for black working class youth and youth in general. We mentioned 4 critical areas of work that the YCL will have to present as part of the discourse for a radical economic transformation, which are firstly politically the empowerment of the working class to lead and to be its own liberator. And in this sense, the working class becoming the active motor that drives change, and its interests manifest in organizational and political programs. It also requires that the state's policy intervention do much more to change the material conditions of the black working class. In economic terms, the entrenched power of white monopoly capital has to be challenged through a dynamic program that uses the knowledge and resources accumulated by this capital to build new sites of accumulation and production. And thirdly, confronting the yawning inequality gap through a combination of measures including redistribution of income, assets, and wealth. The link to socialism, finally, and that socialism will not fall from the sky, but has to be fought for and consciously constructed. How do we know that sufficient ground has been laid for the socialist transition during this second phase of radical economic transformation? The crisis in COSATU is an outgrowth of deep-rooted systemic processes, structural forces and changes in all developments of political contestations within the Union. The crisis must be understood in context. And I want to say that the president or presidency of COSATU will be speaking tomorrow, and that we hope that by the time they speak tomorrow, you would have read this section of the report. But what we want to emphasize, comrades, is the last 3 paragraphs under this section, so that we move towards the conclusion of this political report. The emphasis is that patronage in some unions arrived along with increased factionalism. Being a career shop steward in some instances brought about benefits, and in this regard, certain positions in unions became highly paid when compared to others in a manner that could never have been imagined before. Being a union official is no longer a matter of pushing the struggle in that context and in those instances, but a career that breeds opportunism and conformist to the hand that feeds. Within the union movement, some comrades abandoned solidarity, and injury to one was, according to their conduct, no longer an injury to all, but an opportunity for them to scavenge on the carcasses of their sister unions. Fundamental principles such as industrial unionism and in particular COSATU were violated. One industry, one union as a principle has been opportunistically abandoned, and the basis for unity was destroyed. Deep divisions plagued COSATU instead of solidarity and defending each other. All of these are linked with personal political ambitions. That these ambitions characterizes the call for new political organizations to be created, along with calls for COSATU to split from the ANC-headed alliance. It is in this context that the NUMSA leadership clique has relentlessly been attacking the alliance, the ANC, and scapegoating the SACP at every opportunity, coupled with a drive for the polarization of organized workers in the name of unity. While this is presented as a socialist program, it was first, amongst others, presented internationally in the heartland of capitalism. The main question facing this Congress is what role should the YCL play in defending the unity of organized workers under the leadership of the SACP and also of COSATU. While discussion on this point takes place, one thing is certain. Every attack on the SACP is an attack on the YCL. The YCL cannot fold its arms or become indifferent to such attack, and that's the mandate we're giving to the incoming leadership to continue in defending both the SACP and the Young Communist League. I want you, comrades, to skip drastically this political report. I'm taking that unilateral decision on behalf of the National Committee that you will read in your own time, the international section, but will also be receiving messages of support from the various international organizations. So we would like the comrades, we beg your indulgence that we take that section of the report as read. In conclusion, comrades, this is my farewell address to any YCL meeting as its National Secretary. It has been the shortest 11 years of my life. Most of my youthful and adult life has been about, for, and with the YCL. This is an important journey in my life and the life of many comrades that we shared the YCL trenches with, that we traversed the country and been to no man's lands contributing to the future of socialism. There are many comrades whom I backed, the indulgence of the National Committee that we thank as part of this report, but there are so many that will only mention specific comrades. Comrade David Masondo, the former national chairperson of the Young Communist League, whom together with those whom we were elected with at the Re-establishment Congress and at the Durban Congress, had to carry the baton from the National Steering Committee and bring life to this creation of ours. All of those comrades gave their all to forget the differences we had in Val and together join us behind the steering wheel to build the YCL. I want to thank all those comrades from the bottom of my heart. Comrade Yeshen Pillay, the current national chairperson of the YCL, together with the whole team that was elected in Mafikeng, had been the most exciting of teams. At times when I felt that my youthful age is on the other side of the West, they would remind me that age is nothing but a number. I hope that those that are remaining as part of this team and those who will be joining in to continue to build the YCL will do so with the understanding that the future of socialism lies in your hands. As we have over the years disappointed critics, you too shall with pride lead the youth of the country towards a socialist future. Comrade Nzimande, the General Secretary of the SACP, together with the entire Central Committee, who have been to all of us, especially myself, a leader and a parent whom without the YCL will not be where it is today. And I'll never ever forget the first words that the General Secretary told me in January 2004. I will not say them now and today, but I will never ever forget those words. Although there have been many over the years who wanted to drive a wedge between the party and the YCL, they failed because we chose to ignore them, both as the party and the YCL have grown stronger and stronger. There are many other comrades, obviously, that we would want to thank, who have immensely contributed to the YCL where it is, and to me personally, including, if you may allow me, Comrade Chair, the provincial chairperson of the YCL in Gauteng. Yes, Comrade Vuyo Tlakaza, Makoti. There's never been a need, comrades, for us at any given point to throw out our toys out of the court and revolt against the party leadership, as they always had the time to engage with us and hope that that form of leadership will continue with the new National Committee. To all those who were there from the beginning, I say to you, thank you, comrades. You have made my YCL days the most exciting of my life. I will continue the struggle and will always be there for the YCL as and when I am needed and as and when I am requested, and will not be imposing myself. I will not close the door behind me, for this is where I belong forever. And as Karl Marx said, I have no last words, because last words are for fools. Thank you.
think it's quite fitting that we give our National Secretary, Comrade Buti Manamela, the correct and fitting salute as we welcome the political report. He had said to me that I should stop him, but that report was probably one of the most clear, comprehensive, and engaging class perspectives on a whole range of political issues that I could not stop. I in fact wish that it would have gone even longer with international issues. But nevertheless, let us welcome the political report, and indeed, let us agree, as I indicated, that monopoly capitalism remains our enemy. Comrades, I also noticed that we did not clap when you mentioned and you emphasized paragraph 3 of page 9. Comrades, I want to again reiterate what the National Secretary has said. If you are going to take something away from this Congress, what the National Secretary has offered on behalf of the 4th National Congress on that page is probably the most profound Marxist-Leninist prognosis that this Congress will offer in shaping the second more radical phase of the NDR, if it is to be the shortest, most viable route to socialism in our lifetime. So I wanted to go back to that page. But comrades, we welcome the report. We salute Comrade Buti, we salute the National Committee to Congress, and will now ask the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, Comrade Nzimande, to offer or to address the Congress. Let's welcome the General Secretary.
Viva YCL, viva! Mankulu Fasimba, Mankule! Forward to disciplined militancy, forward! Down with hooliganism, down! Down with anarchy, down! Forward to socialism, forward! Viva NC, viva! Viva SACP, viva! Viva COSATU, viva! Viva SANCO, viva! Viva SASCO, viva! Viva COSAS, viva! Viva the PYA, viva! Manka! here. Thank you very much. Let me start by greeting our second Deputy General Secretary, Comrade Solimabai, and all the members of the Central Committee who are here today. Our provincial secretaries and chairpersons who are here today, including our House Secretary, Comrade Makak, the National Secretary of the YCL, Comrade Putumaname, and thanks for a wonderful and comprehensive political report. Our veteran, Comrade Norman Levy, you must welcome, and it's always good to see you, especially when you are amongst us in a gathering like this. We really feel honored by your presence. The national office bearers of the YCL and the National Committee, the leaders of the YCL from all lower leading committees present here today, our international guests, you are most welcome and you're very special to us. The delegates from branches across the country, the leadership of the PYA that is here. I've only seen the president of SASCO. I haven't seen the others, but you are all welcome, comrades. I greet you. And distinguished guests. Oh yes, the former convener, Masina, of the ANC. And all of you, comrades, let me greet you on behalf of our Central Committee. And I bring a message from the now 210,000 members of the South African Communist Party. Firstly, comrades, we really wish you a very successful Congress. Your success means the success of the SACP, especially its future. Now, this fourth National Congress of the YCL, just to be upfront, comrades, from the SACP, we expect this Congress to pay particular attention on the imperative to build and continuously strengthen the progressive youth movement in this country. This means this Congress must not only be about the YCL and its members, but it must also be about the role of the Progressive Youth Alliance, and it also must be about the task of the mobilization, education, and organization of the South African youth as a whole. There are a number of important challenges in the mobilization of our youth, especially by the YCL. Firstly, decisive action is required to confront what we may call the financialization of political and organizational processes that is threatening to liquidate the progressive youth movement in our country. The buying of youth structures and, of course, all of our organizations by moneyed interests is a scourge that we need to defeat, and we expect this Congress to raise this matter very sharply and come up with concrete programs to confront and defeat this. Any society that allows the corruption of its youth has no future. Of course, comrades, we will ultimately fail to defeat this scourge unless we at the same time intensify the struggle against capitalism, as the root of corruption is in the capitalist system itself. Related to this task that I've just outlined, is the necessity for the YCL to prioritize the recruitment of young workers, especially those in the trade union movement at this point in time. It is clear that the new battlefront in our revolution is increasingly going to be the soul of our youth, especially given the fact that most of our young people today never directly experienced apartheid oppression and the type of super exploitation of the working class associated with colonialism of a special type. Doesn't depart from the correct point that Comrade Putu was making, that the scars of apartheid are still even being felt by the youth of the workers and the poor of our country. That's a very valid point. But nevertheless, it is true, the Cubans always say this, the further away we move from the period of oppression, all revolutions face a challenge of sustaining themselves with younger people who might not know that past of oppression. And therefore, they become the target. Even the types of ideological aberrations we are beginning to see within the ranks of the trade union movement, especially inside the ranks of COSATU, may be associated with this reality. The YCL, working together with the SACP, must pay particular attention and special focus on the recruitment, organization, and ideological development of young workers. This task also is closely associated with the task of building a progressive youth movement that is characterized by disciplined militancy and not the anarchy and hooliganism that gets paraded as militancy today. We hope that in the manner in which you carry yourself at this very fourth Congress of the YCL must lay the foundation for a disciplined YCL, but a militant YCL that must carry itself with respect so that it can be respected by and also attract the rest of our youth and other young formations into its fold. Let yokungahloniphi nokwethuka abantu abadala as if it's going out of fashion and call that militants. We must just confront these things. We must not allow ingane ikhuliswe kabi. Zizositshela ukuthi ukukhuliswa kwabikazo indlela intsha yethu kufanele iyiphathe ngayo. We can't have a YCL that does that. We are very proud that we have not done that. We were worried in Mafikeng because we thought something wrong is beginning to happen. We are very happy that you rescued yourselves out of that. And thanks to the leadership of the National Committee as well. We expect the YCL to be militant in taking up issues facing young people. We don't want a Mama YCL, from Congo YCL. You must take up issues of unemployment, issues of poverty, issues of education and skills training, issues of health, including confronting the HIV epidemic. You must take up issues and fight against crime and corruption, the fight against violence directed at women, and also take up issues to drive youth development in all its facets. We must take up these issues unapologetically. This Congress of yours, organized under the theme of Intensifying Youth Mobilisation for Socialism, takes place at a time when our national liberation movement is engaged in a process of intensifying our national democratic revolution revolution by shifting our transition from the colonial and apartheid legacy onto a second, more radical phase. I'm happy that the National Secretary actually addressed this quite extensively in the political report. So I'm not going to repeat the challenges that use this Congress to discuss this. In particular, the question, what should be the youth content of the second, more radical phase of the transition? Of course, when I pose that, I am not substituting the fact that what should be the class, gender, and national content of the second phase of our transition, and address those issues in a manner that will address the many challenges facing young people. The YCL has a special responsibility to lead in articulating that content. For us, as the SACP, we are very happy with this idea of a second phase, because for us it means deepening the national democratic revolution in a manner that facilitates the transition to socialism, because it's only a socialist South Africa that will ultimately resolve the problems in the world. Now, what's your guide? Your guide is the SACP's program, the South African Road to Socialism, which makes a call that we need to build working class hegemony in all key sites and terrains of struggle and power. In the workplace, in the communities, in the economy, ideologically, in the state, as well as in the environment. And youth is characterized, is identified, the mobilization of youth, as an important terrain or front of struggle in our own program. That's what should guide you. Also, we would like the YCL to engage with our discussion document. It's a discussion document going through the route. It's not the resolutions of the SACP as yet. Let's just capture the essence of what this document says. And it's important to repeat these things. Because, you know, we won an election, by the way, ANC-led alliance this year. But the behavior of our detractors is precisely aimed at wanting us to forget that we did not only win an election, the ANC won an election with 62%. Sibangelo umsindo by people who got little percentages. In a manner sometimes that we forget that the people of South Africa have given the ANC-led alliance to govern this country unapologetically. And we must thank the YCL, because we know the cadres of the YCL have always been in the forefront of the election campaign. Therefore, your energy will always make a difference. And in our document, by the way, we highlight things that most of the media, they do not talk about it. I suppose it's because, DA, these things do not matter to them. In the last 20 years, the ANC-led government has built 3.5 million houses for the poor. To people who have always had houses, this means nothing. But to people who have never had houses, this means the world. To have comfort. Between 1894, it's not a mistake, between 1894 and 1994, there's how many years? 100 years. 5 million houses households were connected to electricity in South Africa over that 100-year period. Between 1994 and 2014, 7 million households were connected to electricity. Now, to people who say the ANC has done nothing, I am a beneficiary of this. Ngikhulele Dambuza in a mud house where there was no electricity. I only lived in a house with electricity, so when I went to university for the first time, you would have seen me what I was doing. You know, when I was on my own, I would make sure my roommate is not here at university and they'll go. And when I hear some footsteps, I will then behave myself as if nothing has happened. I never knew that you could connect electricity to a madhouse. That came with the African National Congress. Those who ever like a DA and their constituents, they don't know what that means. That is why they won't talk about these things. 1.4 million South African students have benefited from the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Most of whom are first graduates ever in the history of their families. They would never have seen a door of a university or a college without this money. These are huge gains that we have made, and we must build on them in order to confront whatever outstanding challenges are there. We know that there is a long way to go. But we are pleased to say the YCL has not been spectators in this thing. Since your formation in 2003, you dived into this, and we have had campaigns that the National Secretary was talking about that have also made a difference to the lives of many young people in this country, including your own 10-youth demands. Now, we must also congratulate you in the role that you have played in exposing and confronting the demagogic wave that took root among some sections of the youth, especially in the wake of the 2008 international capitalist crisis. Sorry, if we did not have the YCL, I don't know how we would have coped with the suffocation of what took place at the time in the ANC Youth League Masini. No, you know, I'm glad the Communist Party were the first ones to say there is trouble there. Even before ANC born, we saw this since that there is trouble here. And some of the people said, but what is the Communist Party doing? It's because communists are usually the first ones to smell a rat. Also because we have got a scientific analysis of phenomena. Now, our document says, though, despite this major redistributive achievements, we have not transformed the colonial character of our economy. And that's the main content of the second phase of what we need to do. And Comrade Manamela, I'm not going to repeat that, has characterized that very well in the political report of the National Committee. Now, we've made these advances, but there are those now who are saying, no, ECOSAT, which has been part of these achievements, must walk away from these achievements and leave the ANC to who? and leave the alliance to who? Well, one other comrades, when you get to the other side of 50 with age, much younger than Comrade Norman, but nevertheless, I'm on the other side of 50. We tend to increase the habit of telling the truth. And we say this, it gets ignored. We will repeat it. Oh, Jim, they left in the middle of the night buying art to go and ask the president of the ANC to ensure that Comrade Vavi gets elected as the deputy president of the ANC before Imam, and therefore to become the deputy president of the republic. Now, I don't want to be misread. I don't know whether Comrade Vavi was consulted or not. It's not a criticism of Comrade Vavi. I'm merely speaking the truth. Oh, Jim, we don't know who can send them there with that agenda. I don't know what the president of the ANC said to them. I can guess. He said, if anyone is to be deputy president, must first join a branch of the ANC. And rise through the ranks. I'm sure. Knowing the president of the ANC, he was smiling possibly at that time. And saying, I don't have a problem, it's just that the route must be this way. When that was explained, these comrades, they came back, they attacked, they said, why is the General Secretary of the party in government? Having consulted with them, by the way, about this decision. So now you can see, either we get our leaders or nobody else must go anywhere near government. That is the source of the problem. We said to the metal workers, ask Ojim, who had given them the money, which special Congress of NUMSA had taken a decision. Now we are being blamed for causing problems in NUMSA and COSATU. We cannot be blamed. We can't manufacture deputy presidents. Now, the media never writes anything about it. It's the truth, comrades. I'm telling you the honest truth. That is the source of all. Aiko political land is about personalized ambition. Because Jim wanted Vavi to go so that Jim can become the General Secretary of COSATU. I'm saying this thing in front of the media because it's the truth, and the media knows it, by the way. They know that this is the truth. So we can talk, when the issue is simple, as I'm actually saying. But comrades, what this means is that both the party and the YCLSA need to pay attention to the trade union movement. That's why I'm emphasizing the issue of young workers that you need to recruit. Now, one of the principal challenges facing our movement at the moment is that of defeating what the SACP has correctly characterized as an anti-majoritarian, often racist liberal offensive, whose objective is regime change, to dislodge the liberation movement from power. You know, all liberation movements, once they've been in power for 20 years, the imperialism says, too long. They must go. You need other people. We are told, you know this thing, by the way, it's an attack on majority rule. The DA must step down because she's ANC, you need a neutral speaker. I want to challenge you now, comrades, because in an smart you can Google. Google all municipalities controlled by the DA and check who is the speaker there. Is the member of DA without faith in all of them, including the Western Cape. Now, you know, comrades, Eunice knows this. I was honored by the SACP, Comrade Shea, to ask me to go and be one of the negotiators at Cortes. I was a negotiator at Cortes. It was really an honor. You know, one of the things we were dealing with at Cortes was how to draw up a constitution that will weaken the power of the majority party. They failed. What declared was wanting some arrangement of co-government. We said no. Majority rule is non-negotiable. That's what they are challenging the parliament. Through collaboration with DA and the EFF. The DA is the leading force of this racist, anti-majoritarian liberal offensive, whilst the EFF is the vanguard of hooliganism. Now, the DA itself, at least there was some decency before for the DA to act. Now they are wanting to outsmart the hooligans by even being more of hooligans in parliament. But comrades, what really disappoints me is that sections of our media, that's what disappoints me, call this hooliganism robustness. They say parliament has never been this robust. With the arrival of the EFF, comrades, go and watch what the EFF does in parliament. What you see is what you get. There is nothing beyond that. It's banging off desks. I want to challenge anybody who has written about the fact that parliament is robust to a public debate. What single idea has been brought by the EFF to the debates in parliament? None. Zilch. Zero. They bang the desk. Pay back the money. Pay back the money. That is good. There is absolutely nothing about that. Now, you know, we've been saying this as the SACP, that there is a very close relationship between demagogues and the media. Because demagogues love the media because the media does the loud hanging for them. And the media loves the demagogues because demagogues sell newspapers. That is the interrelationship. I mean, how can we descend to such silence that anybody can derive that parliament is more robust? What is the meaning of robust? It's to burn desks. Is that robustness? I mean, the level of shallowness is shocking. It's shameful, friend. You know, here in Cape Town, you are in Parliament till 4 a.m. There's chaos. Chaos. Then the headline, robust Parliament. Two completely different things. We know that sections of the media are in trouble because newspaper sales are going down. But please, don't elevate anarchy and equate it. As I say, what you see on TV is what you get. There is nothing. Now, in order to defeat this agenda, comrades, it's very important for the YCL to really deepen political education. That's one of the most important messages from the party. Please do deepen political education. And also analyze these forces, by the way. I'm not saying spend your time. We must do things that take us forward. But analyze who these forces are. Let's try and give a very quick analysis. The DA is deeply divided at the moment. We know that because we sit next to them. They come and tell us. You know why? They don't like Umaima and some of those white male MPs. And they're angry against Helen Zille because Helen Zille keeps on imposing black leaders they don't know. Yes, it's a fact. Umaima and Helen, there is an attempt to remove him by some of the more right-wing white elements in the DA. There is nothing that unites them. There's only one thing that unites them is hatred for the ANC. Yes. EFF, who have correctly characterized it as a neo-fascist, demagogic, and populist organization. And it is a political hotspot in the true sense of the word. You know, I've said, I'm still young, we've got more energy than I do. Why don't you just undertake a quick task for us? Just analyze each and every member of EFF. You know who they are? Many of them were expelled, not only from the ANC, but from the SACP. There's a young lady I won't mention this. I'm Koshenanda, from the SACP, a gang and discipline. So it's a combination of those people, as well as other people who are disappointed that they didn't get tenders for their own Raganan class. And then some elements from the most backward section of the black consciousness movement. There is nothing ideological that unites them. Only one thing unites them. They hate the ANC. Even this NUMSA leadership clique is an alliance between two tendencies in NUMSA at leadership level. The one is the old workers' tendency which never wanted the alliance. The other one is what we call business unionists. This is a class analysis, right? It's business unionists who have actually captured NUMSA for their own personal political agendas and using NUMSA's investment company to do that. That's what paid for their trip to Uganda. Now, they don't agree. Some of them, by the way, come from within. They are our own factory folks. They were in the SACP not so long ago. They don't trust each other with the old workers. What is it that unites them? Their hatred for the ANC. All these forces. That's what it is. And it will be proven right, comrades, sooner rather than later. Let's educate young people because these things are part of this target that is targeted at young people and confusing young people. We would like to encourage you, comrades, also to intensify your campaign of making education to be fashionable. The leadership is here. I want to emphasize this. Perhaps, comrades, because of the need, we've tended only to look at bursaries for first degree or first diploma, but there is a part that we have neglected in our education system. We are running short of academics. The average age of a South African academic is 55 years today, and we are not replenishing them. If we allow this thing to continue 10 years' time, we're going to have a huge shortage of academics. We've decided as a department that we must begin to divert some money for masters and PhD programs. But comrades, we want more of your SACP YCL graduates to do honors, masters, and PhDs. We have enough of liberals who are doing that. Now, in my deployment in government, I get accused to say, Nzimande, you want to advance some left-wing perspectives in universities. I want to declare for all the world to know unapologetically. We have enough of neoliberalism. We need more injection of left-wing ideas. for debate, for different. We need more of you so that we can also have progressive lecturers who understand our agenda. Fine, it's not enough, but not about masters, no PhD, because you can't look at one side. If you only look at undergraduates, who then is teaching at our institutions? You know, those of you who are at university, some of you what you are taught in political science, or in public administration, or in sociology. Today, the kinds of perspectives that are dominant. And the DA is trying to encircle me with I'm putting aside money to promote other kinds of scholarships. Of course I am. Of course I am. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I want diversity of views in our university. We are sick and tired of only one view. Now, if we don't do that, comrades, you are going to create a situation where the future youth that we are generating will be polluted in their minds with only one. Moving towards the end, you were launched in 2003 December. In August 2003, we signed the financial sector agreement. A few months before you were reborn. In 2003, we had the National Summit. We want another summit next year to review how far we have gone as we revitalize our financial sector campaign. For that reason alone, that this campaign was born 3 months before you must take it up as the YCLSA. You know, comrades, the nature of the financial sector in South Africa is very problematic. You have 4 big banks. 4 big banks, monopolies, not even monopolies, they are oligopolies. I'm not so sure they will know what does that mean, but I can sense it means something very big. Now, big banks like that, they never fund. They never give microcredit. That is why we have these 4 big banks, and the next thing you have, is there is nothing in between. Those who are trying to move in between, they either behave like big banks, or they behave like commercialists, or they have no identity, like the African Bank in Capital. They are trying to fill a space that is very difficult. You can't, in a developing country, not have affordable microcredit for cooperatives and other things. So our financial sector is wrong. We need to demonopolize it and create cooperative banks and also create state banks, like we want the Post Bank to become a state bank. You can't only be having these big private oligopolies. If we are to react, we are also, by the way, going to be engaging the trade union movement, especially LIEX COSATU. You know, we have been saying to our comrades, it's wrong this thing to think that the only corrupt people are those who are in government. You are wrong. The trade union movement today is being corrupted by its own investment companies. Like what's happening in NUMSA. Who is funding United Front? It's money from these investment companies, which is now being recirculated as dirty money. And we've said to the metal workers, go and ask your leadership, how are they using these monies where they are being invested? And if workers in this country do not do that, we might as well begin to kiss goodbye the progressive trade union. And we cannot allow that, my comrades. We have got trillions of rands of workers' investment of pension funds and provident funds. We are saying to COSATU, have more of a say on how those funds are being invested. So we are saying, comrades, join us in the financial sector campaign. Now, we are very happy, by the way, that this J. Arthur Brown has been sentenced to 15 years for stealing workers' pension monies. But Manamela is right. It was only after the appeal. If you are rich in this country, you can get away with more in terms of the justice system. And it's something that we need to. Comrades, let me conclude by saying that we want to put it on record. There is no political party in this country, including the ANC, our movement. There is no political party in this country that has built the trade union, the progressive trade union movement, more than the South African Communist Party. Here are some of our living legends who know that. We are very proud of that. Even in COSATU were part of building it. Our leadership, which was in the underground, which was in COSATU as part of SACP underground, we were there when we built COSATU. So we can't be the ones who destroy COSATU. But you know what's happening here? Do you know why this NUMSA leadership clique is always attacking SACP? It's a standard thing. If you want to say goodbye to the ANC, you start first by attacking the SACP. The PAC in 1959, when they broke away, they said one of the reasons is that the ANC is controlled by communists. And they said goodbye. The Gang of 8 in exile attacked the communists to say goodbye. In that, when it moved away from the ANC, they were attacking the SACP. ICO was attacking communists when they left. All of them, they do that. So all Jim are following in the same footsteps. But do you know what is common amongst all these organizations I've mentioned? They are dead. They are dead. You know, if you want to go from the ANC, we don't want anybody to go. But don't blame us, because that's a curse. Once you blame the communists, goodbye. Even in ICU, SIACA from 1919, by 1930, it was dead because it had expelled communists. So communists are part of the South African Revolution. Whether you like it or not, there shall never be a South Africa without a South African Communist Party. So it's false we want to dismiss this. There's this document that has been circulating called the intelligence document. They say INUMSA is written by us. We condemn and dismiss that with the contempt it deserves. You know why they are beginning to cry? They are feeling the heat. Metal workers are beginning to reject their agenda. And that is what we must do. We are calling upon you as the YCL, go out and reach out to the ordinary members of NUMSA and tell them to remain inside COSATU and to remain inside their lives. Comrades, let me take this opportunity on behalf of the SACP to really congratulate the leadership here at YCL. I think it's a proper Nzimande, because Nzimande has played such a crucial role as the first National Secretary of the relaunched YCL from 2003 till today. In cricket language, it's been a good innings. Staying in the crease for 11 overs. with many, many runs. And to those who started the YCL with you, who are here today, some of them are saying goodbye, we must thank you. We debated a lot whether to relaunch the YCL or not. Some of us were very uneasy with, aren't you starting the problem here? No, we have founded a gem. We would not have discovered many of you if there was no Young Communist League. Our Young Communist League. So thank you very much, comrades. We really wish you a successful Congress. Sorry if I've taken a little bit long. But when we are on the other side of 50 also, you tend to speak a little bit. YCLSA
We really know the hype is about the new and how about the new cabinet will actually perform. But what role should then the media be playing at this critical stage?
I would hope that the media will give the newly appointed people a benefit of the doubt.
Has the media lost its respect in this regard? We want you to tell us.
The many factors that are hidden from the...
The National Secretary to once again come up and introduce Comrade Norman Levy and also present a very special award that we have for him from the Young Communist League. So I'm going to ask Ines to do that.
Okay, thank you, comrades. We'll sing. We are presenting, comrades, today the Lifetime Membership Award, which is the highest honor that the Young Communist League confers to its former members and its former leaders. The award has been given posthumously to the former National Secretary of the Young Communist League, Comrade Ruth First. It was handed to her family was also given posthumously to Comrade Joe Slovo, who was also a leader of the Young Communist League. He has been also conferred to Comrade Ahmed Kathrada, Comrade Stalin Charlie. Those are some of the comrades who have received this award, which is conferred by the National Congress to former leaders of the Young Communist League. The comrades who are handing over the award to myself, together with the General Secretary of the Communist Party, is Comrade Norman Levy, who became part of the struggle during the 1940s when he was 14 years old. And he describes it as falling into politics. He was riding his brother's bicycle and found a meeting on the side of the road. And the meeting was being addressed by Hilda Watts, Communist Party candidate for the Johannesburg Municipal Council. And the words made sense to him, so he stayed to listen. And she was addressing about 12 or so people, most of them black domestic workers with some whites standing on the outside of the group. A young man, Philip Lieberman, who was 16-year-old, came over and introduced himself as a communist and invited Comrade Norman to the next weekly meeting of the Young Communist League. And so he went to the meeting. In that meeting, 30 people were there. Comrade Ruth was 18 years old. His other half, Comrade Joe Slovo, Philip Lieberman, was 16 years old. And he thinks also that Comrade Ahmed Kathrada was in that meeting. Lionel Foreman, Paul Joseph, Lucas Masede, who at the time was the national chairman. You would not have known this. Lucas Masede was at the time the national chairman of the Young Communist League. Comrade Norman Levy has been active in the struggle against apartheid. He was part of the people who were referred to as named communists. He was in the liquidators list. He was arrested and served more than 3 years, or convicted for 3 years to prison, went to exile, was part of those who were charged. The 156 people were charged with treason in the famous treason trial, which lasted for more than 5 years, and on 3 July detained for 90 days, went into exile. He then came back, participated in the CODESA processes, and still, at his age, still contributes, belongs to a branch, the Jack Simons branch,